Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Khatib, and I'm the CEO and founder of JobPixel. We're so excited to finally, end our summer series with a bang. So I am so excited to introduce our lovely moderator, the host of the most dangerous podcast in the world.
Lovely.
Yeah. Yes, lovely. Yes. So would love to introduce Chad Sowash and take it away.
Excellent. I don't generally get lovely. I'm sure you can understand why. But welcome, everyone. I am your host, Chad Sowash, and the subject of today's discussion is activating your social media strategy. Wait a minute. We've got hybrid, remote work, resignations, salary changes, new regulations state by state, and you want me to think about activating my social strategy? Yes, the answer is yes. It's an emphatic and resounding yes. Are social media platforms going away? Of course not. Are they a major influence on the market, especially job seekers? Oh, you bet your ass they are. We're more transparent today as a society than ever, which is why social media is a front and center. And that's why today, kids, you're lucky, we brought in JT O'Donnell with us. She's here to help you activate, cultivate, and even reinvigorate, that's right, your brand on social media. JT is the founder and CEO of Work It Daily, a content and SEO machine that has helped clients message and rank their brands for well over a decade. She looks about 22. I don't know if she's been around for a decade. JT has provided expertise over the years as a columnist for Inc. magazine, Fast Company, Hearst, and a bunch of other brands that you know. She is well known all over the interwebs with over 1 million followers on TikTok alone. Most importantly, JT understands that your brand is not what you say, rather what others say about you. Welcome, JT.
Hello, Chad. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, JobPixel, for this opportunity. And I'm really excited to talk about this, especially with you.
Let's talk a little bit more about you. So there are a lot of gaps there. Fill those gaps and give us a quick Twitter style bio about JT. What makes you tick?
Yeah, a little over 20 years ago, I left corporate America and the staffing industry to flip to the other side and become an advocate for the worker. And I did that because I saw this real unmet need, which was, in our business, you got paid on the people you placed. But I was seeing all these people that with a little coaching could have been more placeable. We could have had better matching. And that's what got me into this business. And through that journey of working with literally at this point, with over 20 years, millions of job seekers, it got real clear to me that we had to do a much better job of building out our reputations as employers in order to attract the right talent and make better fits. Part of the problem for job seekers is they didn't know what to serve up to the employer. And that's because the employer wasn't telling them what to serve up. So I've been on the employer brand bandwagon for a long time before it was even a thing. And I'm just excited to see it catching up now. The problem is a lot of companies are just getting into the idea of employer branding. They're already behind because the next generation of workers, they're not job seekers, they're job shoppers. Gen Z knows how to shop for a job and they do it on their phones. And so that's social media. And that's why I want to have this conversation today, because your C-suite's going to be walking down the hall in 2023 giving you a hard time about why you're not recruiting the right talent. And it's going to be because you didn't activate a social strategy. So that's it. That's why I'm here.
Amen. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. And while we're at it, let's launch that beautiful that poll. There we go. We've got a poll. Okay, so this is the part where the Jeopardy music should be playing. So the question is, has your company ever had a negative social media post or review published about them? Now, while we're waiting on the answers, I'd like to thank JobPixel for pulling this webinar together. If you want to empower your employees, give them a platform and allow those collective voices to amplify your brand. Check out JobPixel at jobpixel.com. Supercharge your talent brand today with JobPixel. Okay, so do we have, oh, wait a minute, am I going to be able to? Oh. It's not letting me vote. I feel.
I know. I got shorted. We can't vote. Only you, the audience, can vote. So you put your votes in for us.
I got shorted. I have to say that with the Chad and Cheese podcast, when we get reviews and when we ask for reviews on the podcast, we always say, don't give us a 5 if we don't deserve a 5. Give us what you think, because we need to know, right? And generally, that's what you hear from employers, right? They just want the 5-star reviews. And it's like, those mainly feel fake. They mainly feel fake. So give us the good stuff.
All right, guys. So you guys actually have a really nice participation in this. We're at 80%. So I think I'm going to end it and show the result.
Yes.
Drum roll.
Can I see the results? Oh, there are the results.
Yeah.
Wow. Has your company ever had a negative social media post or review posted about them? Yeah, so 35 out of the 44, 80% was a yes. And then we have 3 who's never checked. Just because you're not checking doesn't mean it's not happening, kids.
That's right.
Just so that we know that. So okay, I hinted to the importance of having a social media strategy, but give us a more in-depth idea of how important a social media strategy is and how it can impact the company's brand.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the idea of any of us going shopping for something these days, right? So we don't just walk into a store and choose what's there anymore. We all have so much information at our fingertips. It would be a crime not to do a little due diligence. So we would do some research, we would narrow in our search, and then we would dig a little deeper, and we would a lot of times look at reviews. We want that kind of transparent, unbiased, and we're smart enough to know when somebody's being so overly negative, we're going to discount that one, right? But over time, we're going to look for a pattern. What's the general overall consensus? I'm going to realistically look at the pros and cons and make a decision. Well, job seekers are now job shoppers, and they do it in the exact same way. So my point is that if you have negative content, you can offset that, balance it by having a lot more content, not fake content that says that you're perfect, but a lot more real content, whether it's third party or from your employees, where they're just talking about the pros and the cons. And when you do that, people can say, all right, no, that seems like a fair and balanced place to work. I'll check it out. But unfortunately, there are a lot of companies out there that have ignored the negative comments. They still have that mentality like, okay, if you ignore it, it'll go away, or you're giving, you're giving it, shining the light on it if you comment. No, that's not the way it works anymore. If you ignore that, it sends a message. And you were talking about brand is what they say about you when you weren't in the room. I have a phrase, brand or be branded. When you choose not to engage with those comments, when you choose not to, put things out there, you're still sending a message. It can be, I'm not tech savvy. My company's not tech savvy enough to deal with this. My company has nothing special about it, nothing special to say about its brand as an employer, or candidly, you have something to hide. And that's what that message sends. So the first thing everyone here should be doing is taking a look at what's out there currently about my company. And if there is negative information, let's take a look at it. And how do we want to authentically try to balance it out? Not fight against it, not discount it, but like you said, Chad, like come up with some other things that we can talk about that says, we're not perfect, but hey, here's some things you should consider when you're thinking about working for us.
Excellent. So in the chat, if you have a process in place, if you have people that are actually focused on those reviews and replying to those reviews, put it in the chat. We'd like to know more about that. So let's jump into part of this discussion being Gen Z, right? And how Gen Z feels, I could be wrong, feels different than working with us Xers and the boomers and even the millennials who are closer to them. So talk a little bit about that and how these reviews mean something to them.
So it's really interesting, and I'm going to give it some context in terms of every generation has learned from the generation before them. It kind of comes into the workplace with, I'm going to do it differently. And I think that's what you all have to be thinking about. So you have, for us, Gen Xers, we were the ones that threw out formal dress attire. We were the ones that pushed for business casual and started to look at more flexibility in our work, wanting to have more of that entrepreneurship, that ability to branch out. Then you had millennials come along, and they were all about work-life balance because their parents were telling them, don't work 70 hours. You really want to balance yourself. Well, Gen Z is all about purpose. So for them, if they're not making a good use of their time, and if they don't feel aligned with the company on multiple levels with respect to their values, they're not going to work there. And I'll give you a great example. I was working with a young man. His parents sent him our way, and he was a chemical engineer. He just graduated, and he wanted to work in a certain area. And I said, make a bucket list. He said, well, there's 7 companies that can hire for my skill set, but I only want to work for 3 of them because 4 of them, I don't respect what they do. His parents were furious. They were like, who is he to make that decision? He has no work experience. He is. He's Gen Z. He's going to pick a job. He's going to go to work for that company. He's going to crush it. If he feels aligned with that company, he's going to perform better. Everyone wins. They get what we didn't. And so that's not going to go away. And candidly, folks, think about it. If you were in the job search market right now, wouldn't you like to work for a company where you woke up every day and felt what they call intrinsically motivation? There's tons of studies on this. There's a great book out there by Alfie Kohn called Punished by Rewards: The Problem with Praise, A's, and Other Bribes. And in it, he makes the argument that for years, we've been sitting there with a carrot stick telling people, get this and you'll get that. Like, coffee bars, pool tables, that stuff all didn't work. They were external motivators. What we need to do is tap into people's internal motivation, what will get them up out of bed and go to work every day. And it comes down to their values and beliefs and what they feel connected to. And so that's why you have to be thinking about that now. It's not going to go away.
Stephanie brings up a good point, and that actually ties in with a comment that we had on LinkedIn from Giovanni Romolo. So thanks, Stephanie. You're thinking exactly where I'm going with this. He posted a comment on LinkedIn. Here it is. Hi, JT. It's not only Gen Z. There are plenty of us out there doing the same thing, looking at reviews. If a company does not have stellar reviews, I will personally avoid them. We all want a better work-life experience, end quote. And I agree. Is this a generational thing, or is it more we're coming out of the pandemic? Maybe it's just layers of the onion, but we're coming out of the pandemic and we all are just kind of like in this awakening mode, thinking, what the hell have I been doing? I mean, even as an Xer, it's like, I want more work-life balance now. It's a little bit easier for me to get because of my position, right? But talk a little bit about that.
I don't disagree. I think across the board, we had a crisis of purpose. I mean, there's a reason 47 million people quit their jobs in 18 months as a result of the pandemic, right? But now people are coming back to it. The reason I think that it's being kind of amplified with Gen Z is, again, that feeling like, do they really have a choice? Do they have the right to do that? Because we still have this outdated notion that you have to earn your way before you can, demand things in your career. And they're saying, no, it's going to start from the get-go. But you're absolutely right. Everyone feels that way. It's just that people look at them and think they're entitled. And we've heard that of every generation that's come into the workforce that has demanded some things before their time, if that makes sense. So I think that's where it's coming from. But, I just want to say something about those negative reviews, Giovanni, by the way. Thank you so much. When you see them, they're not always a bad thing. I worked with one of the largest subsidiaries of a Fortune 100 company, and they had 36 offices across the US. Each office had their own, Glassdoor review, and they all had negative comments on there. But when we looked at them, the comments, the balanced ones, told you exact what kind of person shouldn't work there. And I said to them, that is not a bad thing. You should embrace it. You're not going to try to say those things aren't true because you don't want anybody coming to work for you like that. That's why that person didn't work out there. So let that thing sit there and let people self-select, because the kind of job and company I'd like to work for isn't necessarily going to be what you'd want to work for, right? And that's what we have to start thinking about. Companies have to start getting so worried about, oh, that's negative. Is it negative? Or is it just honest? And is it going to help you get the better talent because they're going to self-identify?
Yeah. I think obviously we actually spoke with Charlotte Marshall. We had a podcast that came out on Monday, and her whole focus is compel and repel. So you want to compel those people who, let's say, for instance, your culture is that you work 80 hours a week. Well, when I was in my 20s and 30s, that's what I wanted, because I wanted the experience. I wanted to climb up the ladder. I probably needed more of a life back then, but that's what I wanted, right? So that would have been a perfect culture for me, because I wanted to go and I needed purpose and I wanted to do something, which is one of the reasons why I joined the military. But as we, maybe grow older, or maybe we just have different purpose and focus, then, you can align, and you are either compelled to apply for that place that has 80 hours a week, or you are repelled. Right. And what, Morgan's actually saying here in the chat, they just got a bad review and they're a smaller company, and, they feel responsible. And I appreciate that. That means you love what you do and you love the people around you, but don't allow that to get you into analysis paralysis, which we see many companies do. Right. So JT, for a company, a smaller company that did receive a bad review, how do you go about not really rectifying that, but just digging into it?
Right. So obviously the first thing to do for the review itself is to address it. You do want to, in a very balanced way, if you can take something in about it. And I love what you said here, Morgan, which is, we feel responsible. That's a great answer. Hey, we feel responsible anytime we get a review like this. We're looking into it and, are going to see what we can learn from it and what we can do. But then I want to talk about the broader strategy for all of you. The way to really have people look at a review and have it only be one piece of the puzzle is by giving them more pieces to the puzzle. And this is where that social media aspect comes in that I'm so passionate about. And I know you are too, Chad, which is if you can start creating little pieces of content, it's like a fishbowl effect. If you can let them inside your world and understand, they can make their own decision about how accurate that negative statement is or whether or not it applies to them. And that's why we're pushing you so hard to understand this. Job shoppers are consumers of your content. They're going to consume it. And you can't just have 4 or 5 pieces of beautifully curated content and perfect videos. You need to have way more content than you ever had before. Now I have a little good news for you. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be fancy. We can thank TikTok for that. You can literally turn on a camera, get somebody to say something, you got a piece of content. And it is so interesting because it is not about the quality, it's about the quantity. Hear me on that. It is not about the quality, it is about the quantity. The more content you do, the faster you will find your voice, you will find what resonates with the right audience, and the more comfortable you'll get with it. So my advice to companies is to stop worrying about making it perfect and just create. Just create content and watch what happens.
Well, let's talk about authenticity when it comes to that, because most companies, they try to over slick stuff. They want it to be smooth. They want it to be perfect. And that's not obviously what resonates with humans. Back to TikTok, right? So talk a little bit about authenticity versus the polished corporate videos that we used to get, over the last 10 years or so.
Absolutely, because those polished corporate videos actually age you out of the process. And so let's talk about why. There's a very hot social media tool out now called Be Real that all the cool kids, all the young kids are using, right? Gen Z. And all it does is once a day, you get a message and it says, take a picture of yourself from the front camera and from the back camera, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. That's it. Be real. You can't zhuzh it up. You can't run to the right location. You're telling the world at that moment what you're up to. And it's become obsessive. People love it. My kids love it. And now that it's been out for a while, I can see why, because they don't want that pretension anymore. It feels good to them to see the real. They crave it. So when your company overproduces, you're creating a barrier between them and you. Whereas if you can just be honest, turn on a camera, snap a photograph, just start to give them stuff to take in, that's when you'll feel real to them. And I think that's such an important trend for people to understand. It's huge right now.
Yeah, because authenticity is trust, right? Because if you do not trust that is really how the company's going to run, right? Or you're just getting all the flowers and bouquets and all that other fun stuff, then you're not going to trust them. And we're at the point now where it is a trust economy. That's what we're running on.
Right. That is such a great statement, a trust economy. We are absolutely living it. And the only way you're going to gain that trust is, again, by putting so much out there that they can piece it together and really feel like they know you. So one of my favorite things that happens, because I've been doing this for a long time, I jumped on the content train early. And people will say, why did you do that? And you're going to laugh when I say that, because I'm an introvert. And they laugh. They're like, there's no way, GT. And I'm like, I actually am. I hate knocking on doors. I hate going to events where I don't know anyone. So when I started just putting content out there, really honest and real and trying to serve my network and just give them as much value, something amazing happened. Everyone came to me. People would message me and say, I feel like I know you. That makes me feel so good inside. So make no mistake, the upside to this is, again, you attract based on what you're putting out. And the more you put out, the more you'll attract what you want. It really is how this works. So I look at brands and employers and say, you've just got to be putting it out there. And if you don't want to put it out yourself, there's some good news coming down the pike, which is there are going to be resources that will do it for you. So for example, I'm working with a company right now, their executive team and $2 billion company is not ready to get on TikTok. No way, no how is not letting them do it, but has no problem working with me and being on someone else's TikTok. Yeah. So here's some great news, folks. There's millions of influencers out there, both macro and micro. And those are the people that you could use to authentically talk about your employer brand. We talk about your employees all the time. If you don't want your employees on there, there are other people out there that you could say, you know, assess my brand. Tell me what you think of what it would be like to work here. You got to do it. You got to get out there and see what they say. You're going to learn so much about the perception of you as an employer. That's going to give you stuff to work with, but you're not going to know until you do it.
Yes, transparency works both ways, right? I mean, they learn more about us, but then you also learn more about the market, and you also learn more about yourself, which is amazing. So, you know, as we're talking about, like, let's say, for instance, again, TikTok, just because it's the biggest, not just social media, but the biggest trafficker out there. One of my favorites is there's this older guy. He's a Gen Z, or I'm sorry, he's a Gen Xer. And he's a Costco manager, and he explains day one in TikTok, then another one, benefits, what to expect on day one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he gets so many views because it's just him sitting there going over just some of the most basic, boring shit that you'd ever think of, but he genuinely is there. Now, this is not a Costco TikTok account. This is the personal account of one of the workers. So one of my messages, if you think that you're not on TikTok, you're wrong. You're already there, because the people that amplify your brand are your employees, not the people in marketing. I love the people in marketing, don't get me wrong, but the people that amplify your brand are the people that do the work on a daily basis, and they want to talk about it, good, bad, or indifferent. So when we're talking about that, what are some of the top trends you see in social media recruiting and branding? And we talk about TikTok. It's the biggest platform in the world, even bigger than Google traffic-wise. That is hard for me to understand, but HR and TA are still shying away from it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Well, you just said something really important. They're talking about it, which means it's video. So the first thing everyone has got to accept is that video has to be a component of your social strategy going forward. And that's why TikTok's doing so well. I know the study came out, 40% of Gen Z are searching how to do something on TikTok. That's Google's own data. So everyone used to go to YouTube and search on Google how to do something. Now they're going to TikTok. TikTok knew that. That's why they were going this direction. But to me, that's an opportunity for all of you out there as employers to start doing how-to videos. You know, how-to videos. And this is a trend that we're seeing. If you don't want your employees talking about what it's like to work there, let them get on camera and teach somebody something about your company, about what they do for work, about the products or services that your company provides. Just let us inside your environment and give them something to talk about. And you can choose that. And that's just such an amazing way, because what's happening in that moment is I'm seeing that person and going, oh, he's like me. She's like me. Oh, I guess I could work there. That's what you're trying to do with your messaging. Show them the people so that they feel accessible, and not those over curated videos that we talked about sooner. So video is a must. Putting your employees on and having them talk about, again, how to do something, how to this. Anybody here today could sit down and come up with 10 how-tos that your company could be teaching right now. And that will make you immediately searchable on TikTok. Incredible. And though, by the way, then you download that video and you post it on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is the biggest bunch of voyeurs I've ever seen in my life. I started putting TikTok videos on with the watermark, and they outperform regular videos. And it's because everybody wants to know what's going on in TikTok, but they're doing it on LinkedIn. So now you're getting a 2 for the price of 1, folks. You're creating a TikTok, a how-to with your employee, you're posting it on LinkedIn, boom, double the bang for your buck. And you can do the same. You have to pull the watermark off on Instagram, but literally you can have one piece of content and suddenly it's in 3 major places where people could start learning about your employer brand. So to me, there's no excuses. You just got to do it.
Well, you have to think about it. I mean, we told stories on cave walls when Neanderthals. That's how TikTok is the new cave wall. The thing is, the scale, the availability, and the opportunity to shape your message is the key. And if you're not driving people, your employees, to actually shape that message because you're afraid, there's a bigger issue than just marketing here, right? And that's something that, you know, obviously have to take care of in-house. But so we have a not really a question from Diane. Does anyone on the call have on-staff ambassadors that help with social media? How were you successful, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk about, do you have people that are, let's say, for instance, focused on engaging with influencers, which some companies are now doing, and then also some that are just focused on driving content?
Right. So I've seen it in two different ways in companies
Mhm.
that I've worked with. One, they've partnered with influencers and just had them review, as we talked about. But the second way is actually finding recruiters across the country. They were larger organizations who were into social media.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't that person, maybe it was the admin or whoever. And what we did is we would drop a theme and say, okay, ambassadors, this is the theme. This is the question I want you to answer, or the thing I want you to talk about for your location, for your area. Here are the hashtags we want you to use. Boom, go. And what was amazing was that you would get, 52 points of view for every place. But they were different and they were unique and they were searchable. So then and that just became the norm. And once they got in the habit of it, it's no time at all. You just drop the theme, everyone posts, and boom, and then you cross-pollinate. So to me, I just don't see how you can say that you can't do it in your company. If it's not you, if you're saying I'm not the person that wants to be on camera, there's someone in your company that has no problem being on camera. There really is. I guarantee you. There's someone in there that wants to do it. And all you have to do is provide them some context and say, I want you to talk about this. And you can take a quick look at it and then say, yep, it's approved, and that's it. So this whole idea of having to go through massive approval and thinking about it, it's not true.
So we've been talking a lot about TikTok, right? But we haven't talked much about Glassdoor and Indeed. Do you believe Glassdoor and Indeed reviews are just a thing of the past?
So I'll tell you this, based on the work we do with job seekers, it is one of the last places that Gen Z will go. They are not going to Glassdoor and Indeed.
Okay.
And they're not going to the company's own careers page because, again, they're expecting the hype. So the thing is they want to fall in love first. So they want the story. They want to hear 7 things I didn't know about working for Nike, or 4 things that will make me want to work for EQRX. So tell me those, see what ignites my passion, my intrinsic motivation. If I'm feeling the spark, if I'm feeling the chemistry, then I'm going to do a little more research, and then I'm going to get real, and I'm going to go check out, if I have to at the end, some things to make sure that, I don't have rose-colored glasses. And, based on that, I'm going to make an informed decision. So my question to you, Chad, is where do you think that's coming from? Why do you think they follow that journey instead of the way others have? Why do they want the story and the fall in love first? Do you know?
I think because it's more readily available now, and it's much more, especially on TikTok. I mean, we have so much more fluid platforms that allows the content to actually get out there. And again, I think from a pandemic standpoint, we all were awakened to the fact that we've been told a story. I don't want to call it the corporate narrative, but we've been told a story over the years that this is how things go. And then a pandemic comes, and it's like, wait a minute, that's not how this is working now. And it's going incredibly well. And I'm incredibly happy. And then people have these new vehicles like TikTok, or maybe even throwing on YouTube or wherever, and they're just not afraid anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to you. Dating apps.
Oh,
think about it. Right? Think about the dating apps that are out there now. You can go back to early day Instagram. This generation was raised on the love story first, and they want choice. So they look at like you said, our model, and go, wait, let me get this straight. I have to go to a job board. It's like going to a used car lot. I got to pick what I can pick, and I've got to try to convince myself I like that. Not when I've been raised where I can swipe left or right and choose what I think works for me and go down that journey. That's why they look at it this way. And I think it's fascinating, and it's not going to go away. In fact, I talked to 2 Gen Z co-founders, who are launching the TikTok for jobs, and they're building this massive group of young people based on that theory, which is we would never get married that way, not when we've had all the dating choice. So why would we pick a job, which is very serious to us? And I think they're right. I think that's where it's headed. So hate to say it, folks, but this goes back to the more content you provide, the more be real content, the greater the chances they're going to fall in love with you.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's Z's. I think we still have, the Xers and the millennials that are out there that are finding their way to the Glassdoors and the Indeeds for one main reason, and that's because of Google and search engine optimization.
Right.
And as long as Google gives Glassdoor and Indeed that SEO fuel, that fire is going to be burning. Now, I did say earlier, if everybody remembers, that Google is not the most trafficked site on the web, right? TikTok is. So we're seeing a shift. SEO is still huge when it comes to Google, although we have to be cognizant of the shift that we're seeing on the web today, period.
No, I'm with you. And I say this all the time, for better, for worse, kudos to them, Glassdoor and Indeed. I put them together. They're owned by the same company,
Yep.
They hijacked the narrative of every employer out there. They did. They took it over. They owned it. If you search your own company, Glassdoor and Indeed, 90% of the time is going to come up first. And that frustrates a lot of employers because they don't have control over their narrative. So now they try to take it back and they have to invest a lot in content in order to get there. But there are tools and resources that are coming up that are going to change that. I think the Google algorithm is going to shift. I think there are companies that are going to come on the scene very shortly that will give people page one ranking against Google, Glassdoor and Indeed. And I think that's going to get interesting, where the employer owns the narrative and can say what goes there. I think that's key. But do not underestimate the fact that tools like TikTok will become the new social search engine. And I know we're talking about Gen Z a lot today because they're important, but folks, millennials, Gen X, they're all going to benefit from this. This isn't going backwards. It means the way people search for work is going to get better for everyone. I think we'd all like to hear the story first and, feel that connection and then do our due diligence and, make an informed decision. So that said, if you're not on sites like TikTok looking up companies, you should be, because that is the future. That's another place that you should be researching.
So one thing, because I'm obviously in the podcast business, we have many brands come to us one way or the other, whether they want to start their own podcast or they want to be affiliated with our podcast, or they just want to get into podcasting, period. Do you see podcasts as social media in marketing for companies?
I do. And it's really interesting you say that, because I was recently approached and in discussions about a podcast, and the agency explained to me that we have this big divide right now. So you have a core level of huge podcasts that everybody listens to. And then there's just massive amounts of podcasts in the middle.
Right.
And so I think the future is like anything. They say it starts to segment out. So you'll end up having niche podcasts within industries and people will start to watch that. But the other big trend that I think is going to happen is micro podcasting, which is literally their 5-minute segments. And I've seen you do that with your amazing podcast. You've got the longer segments, but you've got the shorter ones too. So I think for a lot of people thinking about podcasting out there and thinking, well, how do I come up with a 45-minute platform or 30-minute? You don't have to. That 5 minutes. And if you have a face for radio, remember they used to say that?
Yes.
You could be podcasting and doing 5-minute segments and building out that way for sure. Yeah. But when we talk about content, something we do so much at our company is we get the most bang for our buck by reusing the assets. Anytime you create content for your employer brand, that asset should be used in multiple ways. So recording you on camera for 5 minutes talking about that can then be ripped to audio and be the podcast, can then be cut into multiple videos, 2-minute videos. So there's so much that can be done with a single piece of content. It can then be translated into written word and posted as an article with the video embedded so that Google searches and finds it. There's a lot of things that can, go over people if they don't know about SEO and things like that. But what I'm saying is very small amounts of content on your part, as long as it's authentic and transparent and truthful, we can do a lot with that these days. And that's what I think is exciting for people getting into employer brand now. We're here to tell you that it's not going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in a big budget and an expensive employer brand agency. It's come way down. There is so much that you can do for free and low cost that is easy and that these audiences will enjoy.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, at least with podcasting, there are like over 2 million podcasts that are actually out there today. And 80% of them launched about 6 episodes and that was it, right? So I think there's also Twitter's coming out with a podcasting platform where they're going to be able to, I think, make it easier for people to do those 5-minute podcasts just with their mobile phone. Yeah, just with their mobile phone.
Anchor.fm, it was easy. I tested it for a client. I had it up and running in literally 15 minutes. Yeah. So, I mean, the technology's there.
owned by Spotify, by the way. So
Yeah.
there's a reason for that. So let's jump back to search engine optimization really quick. You know, why is search engine optimization so important for client sites today? This was a big thing 15 years ago. Is it still as big today as it was back then?
So I think it is when we talk about employer brands, because like anything, people are just catching up. So they're going to look on TikTok, but they also are going to go onto Google and do a search about you as part of the journey, right? They're going to want to make sure they're making an informed decision. So having a good top fold, which is the first 5 to 6 things in a search results, matters. You know, we all Google search something and there's 12,000 results and none of us look at all the pages, but we tend to look at the first page. And so if you know that what's going to come up is Glassdoor and Indeed, and then maybe your own careers page, that's fine. But as I said earlier, people are aware of those, don't want to go to those first, not anymore. What they want is the storytelling. So what I advise people is create the stories around your brand. Tell us 5 reasons to work for you. Tell us 7 reasons not to work for you. You know, under Charlotte's message, which is brilliant. Give us some things that are going to make me want to go learn more about that. And start there, because that's just going to be my starting point. But what we find, by the way, is that when you do that storytelling and you're able to publish it, you actually shorten the time from them learning about you to wanting to apply. And I think that's what we need to start to talk more about, which is this content is going to shrink that for you. Not only are you going to get a better match, but they're going to be more inspired to take action faster. So even more reason to pay attention to your SEO so that the storytelling can get them there faster.
Yes, search engine optimization not only made Indeed really the biggest platform that's out there for search, but it keeps them there. Well, stay tuned to the new Google switch here soon. We'll see what happens with the algorithm. So let's jump over to imaging real quick. So here's another nugget from Giovanni. Giovanni says HR cannot fix a bad image. Is Giovanni right?
I guess I don't think you need to fix a bad image. I think you need to reveal more imbalance. That's what I talk about with my clients. We're not going to create your employer brand. We're going to reveal it. It's already there, right? It's like you said, it's what people say when you're not in the room. So if people are trash talking to you about you, then really, so does your entire staff feel that way? I mean, we always focus on the negative as the one big thing, and we forget that we could just pivot in the other direction and find 100 employees and say, what do you all think? I have seen so many companies do that, and their own employees become their advocates and say, no, I want to get on camera. I want to comment and talk about why I love this place. That's not accurate. So you want to solicit that. Now, if you go ask and you get crickets, we have a much bigger conversation, right? If none of the employees want to come to your rescue, then we need to think about, oh, gee, is that statement accurate? And start to think about something. But you know what? That's also a chance for transformation. I have worked with companies who have had bad press. They've had bad things happen. They've handled situations poorly. And so what we do is we start to create an honest narrative around the journey through that and what they've done to rectify that and how they fixed that. What a wonderful thing for people to see, because guess what? We're not perfect and employers aren't either. So let's judge them on how they respond to something bad, you know, a setback or whatever it is. How did they handle it? And let's look at that honestly and put that all out there and let people make a decision based on that. It's amazing. People will come and rally behind you if you're willing to say, yeah, you know, this is how we screwed up. This is what we learned. And this is what we're doing differently.
Right.
Great opportunity.
So let's not talk about the vehicles as much. Let's talk about the actual fuel, and the fuel is content, right? So what about video? It seems so overwhelming. I don't have a video team. I don't have editors. I don't have scripts. Who owns it? Is it me? Is it marketing? How do I get it on my site? Distribution to social channels? How do I even get started there? When I talk to employers about this, you can just see their head about to explode trying to think about how to get this actually done feasibly. How do they do it? How can you make it practical?
Yeah, so I love that. So first of all, thank you for saying that. The big mistake they make is they start to think, well, hey, we have to figure it all out and get it all set up and ready to go. Actually, it's a complete opposite. So when I work with employers, we do one little thing. We create a content tree. We brain dump ideas. And there's a kind of a process around that. And through that process, we figure out 10 pieces of 60-second content they should do. That's it. And we decide who's going to do it. And we just record the 10. And then we look at it and we put it out there, and something magical happens. We get engagement and we very quickly figure out what did well, what kind of sunk. But what comes out of that is people will make comments and you'll go, oh my gosh, 5 people commented about that. That's our next piece of content. And after that, you will never have a content shortage again. Because once you start creating, the engagement will tell you what has to be your next piece and your next piece and your next piece. It's unbelievable. And it's kind of magical to watch, because you see a company go from, I don't think we can do this, to, oh my gosh, this is all we want to do. Because it's so easy. Once you learn to turn on a camera and just answer a question or share something, you can do this so much faster than what? Designing a graphic, writing an article, which is long and tedious and boring. Yeah. And then there's this thing that you can turn on and serve a whole bunch of people that want an answer from you. That's the key. So it's really that content tree, that initial content, and just going. And it's safe. Guess what? If it doesn't work, we take it down, delete it. It's no big deal. It's okay. Yeah. We're not going to deal with a cancel culture. I'm certainly not going to let any client ever do something that can hurt their brand, right? But I am going to show them how to be real. And once they learn it, oh my gosh, then they go, okay, this can't hurt us. We can do this. And they become addicted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, going back to something that you said earlier, is that when you start to put out, let's say, for instance, video content, you can have that transcribed. That's now text content. You can rip the audio out of the MP4, make it an MP3, what have you. Now you've got audio for a prospective podcast or what have you. But again, it's all about leveraging the content that you have. And if you have a 30-minute podcast, so that 30 minutes can be chunked up into who knows how many pieces, and it's content that can fuel the fire. You can release the 30 minutes all at once and the little chunks throughout the year. I mean, it's just, it's amazing how you can use content.
And that's just it, that to think that you're gonna have to produce so much content is assets. It's like wine or lasagna. They get better with age. The more you use them, the more they show. So when we do a campaign with people, we show them their 3-week results. And then I say, this is just your first 3 weeks. This stuff gets to stay out there. So, every time you post a job posting somewhere and it's done after 30 days, boy, that was, to me, wasted money, because you could have probably produced 10 pieces of content for that budget that's out there for good forever. That's only going to keep giving back to you. And when we show companies that and they say, wow, I want to start answering the question, working for, insert your company name. And by the way, everyone here should go do that on Google right now. Go put in working for and insert your company name and see what comes up. And ask yourself, is this what we want people to find? What else do we want there? Also, by the way, if you're any kind of senior executive, go type in working for and put in your name. Go put in working for Chad Sowash right now. What we found is that 76% actually go search on that too. So we're not just talking about company content. Guess what? Next year, we're going to be talking about executive content.
Yeah. And I think all that, again, one of the things that we do, at least with Chad and Cheese on the podcast, is that we have over 900 episodes. We transcribe that content, and it literally is like compound interest. So half of our listens happen on podcasts that are already 30 days old. People are finding those on Google and they're like, oh, this is interesting. I want to listen to that. And then they listen to more, right? So we have all of our people that, today are subscribers and they're listening to what's coming out hot and new today. But then you have people that are then drawn to you off of all of this content that you have out there. And again, it's more like compound interest if we think about it. Now, we haven't talked about YouTube, and Emily asks a very good question. How does YouTube play a role in job search, or does it?
It does. So this is really exciting. So that YouTube started YouTube Shorts, and they put a lot of emphasis on it. And now they're seeing the results that TikTok is taking off. So the good news is they're like quadrupling down on that. And so the beautiful thing is you can create video for YouTube that can be reused on all these platforms, just like you spoke of. So one video could go on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and any place else you want to embed it as well. That's what we talk about. These assets are so valuable. And I would not rule out YouTube. I would get your content on multiple sites, because it's just that many more places for people to find you and go down the rabbit hole, which is what you were talking about. So when I started on TikTok and everybody was laughing that I was doing this, how dare you as a CEO? What are you thinking? I said, I'm not building it for the audience today. I'm building it for the audience a year or two from now who watches me on a TikTok, goes to my page, and 60 minutes later has gotten 60 pieces of insight from me. And now all of a sudden they want to work with my company. So I want you to think about that. If all of you went out there and said, we're just going to create content so that we can come up with 60 pieces for an employee, and you put it someplace where they can go down, a potential employee could go down the rabbit hole in 1 minute increments. This is what Chad and I are talking about. This is how you will go from somebody who doesn't even know you to passionately applying for your job, sending you the love letter of love letters up as a cover letter. And that's who we want. That's what we all want as employers. We want that match from the beginning. That's what this content affords you.
Well, and I love, as you had said, and Brad's actually saying now, people love watching TikTok, whether they're making it or not. And I was one of those voyeurs, I guess you could say, where I watched it for months for at least 30 minutes a day, because it just makes me smile, watching puppies and all these really cool things that it just made me smile. Then I started making videos and I started to get that interaction and started sharing some things. But how many people, much like you said earlier, watch TikTok via LinkedIn because of the actual, right?
It's huge. It's enormous. It's enormous. I'm teaching executives right now. So I have this executive program where I'm teaching them how to build their executive presence. And we're going to be doing this thing called ExecuTalk this month, because we've taught so many of them how to do video. They're now on TikTok. They say, I will never go back. I will never go back, because they take every TikTok, they rip it and put it on LinkedIn, and people come up to them at events. We're now back at networking. I have one woman, she's pivoting from one career to another. She's been doing all this amazing content on TikTok, putting it on LinkedIn. She got accosted at an event. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And she said, nobody's commenting on my TikToks on LinkedIn. So she said, I don't think anybody's seeing them. Well, that was proven wrong when 9 women came at her and said, why are you doing this? What are you doing this for? And she said, because I'm building my brand. I want people to know that this is the space I'm in now. And sure enough, she's about to land a huge, huge deal because of her TikToks on LinkedIn. How crazy is that? So folks, it doesn't matter if nobody comments or says anything. They're watching. I promise you, they're watching.
It looks like Alin says, so true. She's watching TikTok videos on Instagram, right? Yeah. I mean, because everybody's repurposing. This is the point here, kids. Repurposing. You do that one TikTok video. I mean, the way that I actually shoot mine is I shoot it directly to my phone, pull it up into TikTok, and then for the most part, it looks better than it did on my phone because I did all the little things. And then I can use it on LinkedIn, or I can use it on Facebook, or what have you. Melissa asks, how do you get the TikToks viewed the most? Tag a certain way. How did you, was this kind of like Google in the trust in the algorithm? The algorithm started to trust that you were putting out consistent. Were you tagging it a certain way? How did it work for you? Because you have over 1 million followers.
Yeah. So for me, I was really strategic, and I teach everyone to be smarter with this. So first of all, we get a sense of what people are searching on, topics they're searching on. You create those videos for that, and you hashtag related to that. And then you drop your TikToks at certain peak times. So there are certain times of the day where more people are on them. And you're going to play better with the algorithm if you do that. In the beginning, you need to be consistent. TikTok's going to reward you for pushing out content every single day. So you've got to be ready to do that. And if you can't, fine, we'll do what you can do. But if you want to see faster results, you do want to push it out on a regular basis at certain times of the day, and it needs to be related to searches. And again, that's great, because if they're searching there on TikTok, they're searching on YouTube for that. They're searching on Instagram, they're searching on Google. So you're going to take that video and use it in all those other places. So it's really about working smarter, not harder. And once I did that, TikTok, you'd see it in increments. You'd have a post blow up, a TikTok blow up. And like you said, with your events, you were talking about this earlier, every time you go to an event, you see podcast subscriptions increase. For me, every time you had something go viral, you'd see a big increase. And that tends to happen in cycles. There's always something once every couple of weeks that hits big, and you see more followers, and it's great. But it also, do not underestimate the power of the hip factor to that. If you can create content on TikTok, you look like you're staying on top of trends. And that's what I think people have to start thinking about. If your company does not have a TikTok presence, and you can't put that TikTok presence on LinkedIn, then what you're saying is that you're not staying up with the times. And it's in the same way, remember when websites first came out, we were like, ooh, websites. And then in a blink of an eye, you can tell everybody that had an old website.
Yes.
That's where we're at with this, folks. You're starting to
Yes.
look old because you don't even have a TikTok account. That's a problem.
Yes. Well, let's go ahead. And if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat. We'd love, because we've got less than 10 minutes left, and we definitely want to hear more about what you guys are looking for and why you're not using social media. Put the obstacles in there. We can talk to that as well. I want to talk to really quick while we're waiting for some questions to come in about the power and impact of imaging for HR. Most TA and HR departments don't understand just how much power they have over a brand, not just the employment brand, but the overarching brand. For instance, I was on stage at one of the biggest and best branding and marketing conferences in the world in Banff, Canada. And it had nothing to do with TA or HR, but we were talking about user experience and branding when it comes to, that's right, hiring. We had Yeti and Intel on stage, two big brands that are brand obsessed, right? And we went through, you're going to love this, we went through the application process, right? And all of the CMOs and brand leaders in the room, as we started to go down the path of the user experience and the black holes and those types of things, their eyes got huge because of the millions and millions of people that actually come yearly just to Intel alone to be able to apply for a job. So that power that we have, we underestimate when we are looking for not just branding externally, but internally, and talking to marketing and trying to get resources to do these types of things. We need to be more bold, and we need to demonstrate our power. When you were doing this, JT, I know that you already know this. How are you working with clients, and what kind of motion have you seen from talent acquisition to prospectively working with marketing to get more resources to do more of this?
Now, so I love that you asked that question, because when we go in, we say it's a 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah.
But whatever you're doing in employer brand is also going to power your marketing. And let's go back to earlier in the conversation today where we said there's a big shift now, purpose-driven work. People want to work for companies they identify with. So they're looking up the companies they love, the brands that they love, that they follow, and saying, gee, I wonder if they'd hire somebody like me. So to have that content, obviously what attracted them was your regular marketing, and that led them to look at you as an employer. Now imagine doing employer marketing that's making them fall in love with the brand even more. That opportunity for them to say, oh, I love it that much more, be that much more evangelical, so that when they come on board, they're more likely to share their content with who? With the world, and we know that. And I'm going to get some pushback here and say, hey, JT, our brand isn't sexy, right? We're not Yeti, right? Or you get that all the time. My brand isn't sexy. You could not be more wrong. We can take any company and find the sexy in it, because if you have employees, they're there for a reason. There is something in them that they all internally share. That's what we bring out. That's what we amplify. Remember, we don't create it, we reveal it. And so we have fun with that. And we look at it and figure out how to make that the thing that people want to talk about. And it's really magical. There's no shortage of content that you can create for your brand that will help marketing and help you attract talent if you just dial into the sexy, right?
Yeah, but don't get us wrong. Not everything is sexy, and there are things that are broke that you do need to fix. And I think this goes more toward a business conversation that you should be having with obviously talent acquisition, HR, and going to the C-suite to demonstrate how you are actually impacting the bottom line. If you aren't getting talent in because you're not sexy enough, or you're not telling the right story because things need to be fixed, that's impacting your bottom line, because product can't be developed, it can't be sold. You have literally huge business issues that you need to address. You can't just make up the sexy. The sexy has to be there.
Yeah, but it also doesn't have to be perfect. Now I'll give you a quick example. I was working with a client, and he was having a hard time recruiting. And when we looked at the job, and I said, can you please describe the person that does well? And he goes, there is so much pressure in this job, and it's all of a sudden, like, deals come in and you have hours to make this thing happen. He said, the only way I can describe it is like, you have to be like a fighter pilot, like in the moment. And I said, that's what we're going to sell. And he's like, no, people won't want to work for me. I said, You're right. A lot of people want to work for you, but to a few people out there, that's the sexy,
Yes.
right? It's not sexy to a lot of people. That's what we market. And guess what? He started getting the right people. So it's really, I think we've talked a lot of that from different angles today, but that's what we want people to understand. Don't be afraid of this. You're going to find out your thing, but you've got to start. You've got to start with content, start with the baby steps. And I guess my good news is that while it might seem like a steep learning curve, it's not, but I'll tell you something, it's a short one. Once you get into it, you'll be like, why were we ever afraid of this?
Tell your true, authentic story. Don't make shit up, guys. Don't make shit up. Tell who you are. Be there. Be the Domino's pizza that actually came out and said, yeah, our pizza sucked. We cut corners. We're sorry. We're changing. We're going to make a better pizza. And they apologized. And they came out and man, that campaign exploded. Be Domino's pizza.
Yeah. And then people want to work for that because they love the story. How do you attract your talent? You tell your truth. Beautiful.
Yep. Omar, sir, are you ready to take the reins?
Absolutely. Well, I want to start off by thanking you and JT for this amazing conversation. Everybody that is here, please wait for a couple of more minutes, just a quick announcement. But like, I just want to start off by, this was an amazing conversation. I think authenticity tells every brand story in a completely different light. Text doesn't work no more. Video is the way to do it. And this is why we've built JobPixel as a company. So we actually allow you to collect video content from all of your employees, your customers, to tell your brand story without needing to go look everywhere and try to hire, big video crews and people running around after people. And if people are working from home, you're not sending a camera crew to somebody's house. So feel free to go to jobpixel.com, sign up with us, and we're happy to have a conversation. I'm also going to include a link to my LinkedIn profile that anybody wants to connect with me and have a conversation about video. We've done this for so many brands right now. We have Talbot's, Ashley Furniture, and many more that are already ranking higher, bringing in amazing talent. And video content is the way to do it. We help you collect those authentic stories, tell your brand story. And one of our people at JobPixel said this one thing: you either brand yourself or be branded. So brand yourself. Let people know who you are as a business before someone else actually does it for you. So yeah, thank you so much. If there are any other questions or anything that somebody wants to bring up before we wrap up, we're happy to answer them. But yeah, Chad, JT, you guys are amazing. Such rock stars. Seriously.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Omar. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.